Good morning. This video is off the cuff, so bear with me. I also have a limited amount of time because I only have one battery and the sun's about to come around that corner and shine in my face. I've been a long time proponent now of thinner axe handles. I've always thinned my axes down, pretty much my whole life. And I'm in good company with, some important axe influencers in the past. While my content on that subject has probably contributed to a paradigm shift that has either happened or underway regarding axe handle thickness, there's still a lot of manufacturers putting out thick handles, and I get this comment quite a bit. This isn't a commonly asked question, but it's a common comment that people need thicker axe handles for either grip or control. Now, in terms of the strength of the handle, that's a separate topic, and I have videos addressing that. Watch the video linked at the end here and up in the screen on, axe handle design and stress distribution for information on that. But today we're just going to deal with the control and the grip. In efficient chopping, you shouldn't be trying to over-control or over-grip the axe. If you grip the axe hard, it throws off your aim. It causes more stress to you. It uses muscle energy that you don't need to be using, right? Like every muscle that you have tense that you don't need to be using just is draining your battery constantly. So that includes like just grabbing the handle extra hard. Plus, when you try to steer the axe and try to control the axe too much as you're chopping, try this. Try not doing that. Try really letting the axe go where it wants to go. You should think of chopping in most cases as using the handle to throw or whip the axe head into the work rather than a way to kind of like control, steer, and push the axe into the work. Now, obviously, you're doing a little bit of steering and everything, but try just kind of like getting the axe going and let it go and take a real light grip and let it go. Now that's how chopping should look most of the time. It's more efficient, it's more accurate, it's just more relaxed. And once you kind of click into that mode and get in that zone, it's just really awesome. So in order to do that work, to just kind of think of it as guiding the axe into the work or swing it and letting it go into the work, suddenly this whole issue of like this idea of controlling the axe or steering the axe is really becomes unimportant, and you can't really understand that until you get into that mode and it works for you and you do it. So you just have to try it out. As far as grip goes, I just don't get it. I never use any kind of grippy tape. I don't want any texture on the handle. I want the handle to be smooth and slippery. This is a great example here. So this is tuned down how I like it. It's nice and thin. Down here, it's really quite thin, I think it's maybe 3/4 of an inch thickness and maybe like an inch wide or something like that. And, this is nice to have the pommel here because it does really help stop your hand in case of, various things that might happen and just general chopping. Other than that, like I never feel like I need a thick handle in order to keep a grip on the axe for some kind of safety reason. And as I said, I've already kind of addressed the control reason, although we'll go back to control in a second on hatchets. So this is what handles are evolving toward now. And it's not just cheap axes like this. This is a true temper. But, this is this is the worst example I've seen, and that's saying a lot because even a lot of high-end and, medium-end axes like Snow and Neely, I've seen horrible handles from them, just super thick, bad designs, Gransfors, Hultafors. Lots of people have gone to these extra thick handles thinking that it's going to make the axe stronger, which it doesn't. But people who grew up in that era of thicker handles, which started like in I think the 70s or 80s and kind of went up and just has gotten worse and worse, aren't really used to a thin handle. So when they get one, they think, oh, this is, it's just too thin. It doesn't feel right. And again, the strength issue is a separate topic, and it's really not about strength and just making the thing beefier and beefier. It's about resilience, and the whole axe handle is a resilient system that is resilient to stress. So again, watch my video on that. But this handle probably has at least a third extra bulk that needs to be taken off. I wouldn't be surprised if half of the weight of this handle would come off, or maybe like 2/5 or something. So kind of to drive this point home, this is a traditional Basque axe, and this head was sent to me by John Ugalde, and I ordered this handle because I wanted to see like what the traditional handles are like. So this handle slips in from the top instead of coming up this way and getting wedged. So, in order to get the head off, you just do this, right? So in order to have a handle like that, this end needs to be thin, right, in order to slip in there. But it doesn't need to be this thin, but it is anyway. Look at this. This is probably less, even thinner than this by just a little, maybe a little bit less than 3/4 of an inch, and not very wide down here. But my point is that this is the part you grip. It's very thin, very flat, not very wide this way. And go take a look at some Basque axemen at work with these axes. These are not like, small dudes with tiny hands or something, okay? And they do competitions with these axes and this style of handle and thin handles. They make American timber sports look like the difference between football and rugby, basically. Huge hardwood logs, like chopping through multiple logs, endurance stuff. Like one of the videos he posted, they have to chop through like a whole bunch of like 18-inch beech logs, and then they have to run around this sand pit like a bunch of times, and whoever does all of that first wins the contest, right? Totally badass. But they use these axes all the time with the thin handles. Why? Because you don't need a thick handle. You don't need the control. You don't need the extra grip. So going back to this new axe with the thick ass handle, if you go on like eBay or auction sites and look at old axes, just type in axe and start looking through and look for the really old axes with the old original handles, or handles that were, made before, like say the 80s or 70s or something. You're going to see a lot of thin, elegant looking handles, right? When they come out of the head like this, they don't have these big angles and big like sharp things coming out. None of that stuff. It's like a nice, smooth, even transition. Everything's tuned down, and the entire handle is thinned down. If you were to be, lucky enough to find something that was actually used in the lumber industry, prior to like the 50s or something like that, you're probably going to find handles that are tuned down even finer than they came from the factory, which at the time was much thinner than they come now. And like really tuned down to like these nice thin-handled axes. And again, look at like old videos of men chopping in the lumber industry. So what I'm saying is the vast forests of North America were not chopped down with these like brutal beater club-like handles, because they couldn't do it. Like, you can't work with this tool all day and then do it again the next day. It'll just beat your ass because of the reasons I've covered in other videos. And did those lumbermen, need that control? My friend Gary Ferguson's like my best friend from like 4th grade, sent me a picture of his grandpa, who was a lumberjack. They called him Bull of the Woods. He was in Canada. Dude, burly dude, it's a picture of him like standing with a crosscut saw over his shoulder. I'll post it here. But, that guy was not using these big club-like handles, because you don't need them. It's just not true. Now, where would you need them? The only place that I really feel ever a need to have some kind of like thickness and grip for control is in hewing and like carving. So this, for instance, is my everyday hatchet. It's very, very thin handle. This is how I like the handle in terms of how it feels when I'm using it, when I'm chopping, when I'm out in the woods, handling it and stuff like that. But if I'm doing a lot of carving, which I do with this axe and with handles like this, you definitely can feel a difference. Like, I don't even have big hands. My hands are like small to medium for a man my size. And, it feels a little small, and there's a bit of a control sacrifice sometimes, or just actually fatigue from trying to grip it too much because it just doesn't quite fit my hand. Now, that's kind of like a compromise, right? If I were a professional carver, if I was carving all day long, at least for some of the work, I would want a hatchet with a thicker handle just to have that kind of control. And there's some compromise there. Now, it also matters what type of wood you use, I think, a lot. So if I were doing that and I wanted that thicker handle, I'm probably going to choose a lighter wood. I mean, ash is always kind of the go-to example of a wood that's strong, fibrous, used for axe handles a lot, but it's clearly less dense than hickory because there's something about the hardness of the wood, but it's the density. There's something about the density working against your hand that causes more fatigue and handle shock. Like for instance, if you were to take, you know, a handle of the same exact diameter and size, and one of them is just like glass hard and super heavy, and the other one is like, you know, hard, but say like, you know, a softer hardwood and, you know, half the weight, and you smack them against your hand, you're going to feel a real difference in that. And I think the same is true for handles. Even though the system works different, there's some kind of a slapback that's happening against your hand with the handle shock. So in that case, I'd kind of go with like a lighter mass wood if I was, say, making a specific use hatchet, or if I was designing one, like if I was designing a carving hatchet that you wanted good grip like all the way up and down the handle. So another option, and what you see in a lot of older tools, is this, where you have, you know, this is thick and you have lots of grip, and this just feels about right to me. Like I use this tool a lot too, and for really extended periods of time, things like chopping bark or hewing out larger work or trying to like move a lot of wood. But this really helps to kind of like dampen that shock a little bit if you're doing kind of hard, heavy work. Because the stuff I do with this tends to be like wood removal, like bulk wood removal. So I'm hitting stuff pretty hard, but I still need that little bit of control. And that's the issue. It's like when you get really down to thin handles like this and you're carving and you need a little control, you'll find that it just feels a little wobbly and weird. So that's an exception where you might want some thickness for control. I haven't seen the argument yet that you need any kind of like extra grip or control, and I don't think that translates to people with large hands. Like maybe if your hands are huge, I mean, do what you want. I don't care what anyone does. I'm just saying that the historical record and my experience and the experience of lots of other people that you know have spent a lot of time chopping really contradicts this idea that you need control and grip on your axe. So when I started making axe content, like this subject was one of my pet peeves that I really wanted to have an effect on the axe community and eventually on axe manufacturers. And I hope that that is happening. I mean, I know it's happened a lot with, you know, just choppers, but as far as the manufacturers, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to actually hopefully be working on that and trying to actually make some content that's toward axe manufacturers, just saying, look, you know, this is my advice, this is what you should be doing, because it's really painfully obvious that most axe manufacturers are not axe users, and they're not interfacing with any like high-level users or just kind of like everyday but experienced users. All right, well, the sun did sneak around the corner there. Today's my birthday. I'm going to give away this axe. This is the stock axe, so this is kind of like the stock handle. It's quite a bit thicker. I actually haven't tuned this down exactly where I want. I've just been kind of whittling away at it, but it'll look pretty much just like this one here, because this is also a council tool. But it's close, and it's totally usable the way it is. So I'm going to give this away to the first person who can guess how old I turn today. Yeah. If you're overseas, you'll have to pay the shipping. I'm not going to pay shipping to like Europe or something. And honestly, it's probably not worth it, but that's up to you. That's my 2 cents on that subject. Watch my video on axe handle design and stress distribution and like how axe handles fail because of poor design, and really it has everything to do with thickness and transitions, and this is just an abomination. This is so bad. True Temper, that's the worst axe I've ever bought. Later.